This video is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. UFC fight night headline by Petr Yan versus Merab Dvalishvili is happening this Saturday, and the main card is going to start 7 p.m. Eastern, or whatever time zone you're in. The main card is going to be like 3 hours before the usual time. So if you're used to watching it like 8 p.m., the main card is going to start at 5 p.m. instead. And the card's actually pretty good, man. There's a lot of good fights. A former champion Petr Yan versus top contender Merab is going to be on this. And the winner of this fight is really close to a title shot. It really depends on what happens with Sterling and Cejudo. And it should be a competitive one. The odds have it pretty one-sided, but I think Merab definitely has a much bigger chance than they're actually giving him. The battle of the Alexanders, Alexandr Volkov versus Alexandr Romanov. The old versus the new. Even though they're almost the same age, they're like 2 years apart. Volkov's been in the game for a long time, and Romanov is just getting into it, man. The guy's just started. He's looking better physically, in much better shape now than he was when he first started. So that's going to be an interesting fight. And it's a striker versus grappler matchup. Nikita Krylov versus Spann. It's back. And hopefully nothing crazy happens again. Hopefully Krylov is okay. But the fight should relatively be the same of what I described it before, except the fact that Krylov is probably a little bit more compromised because he had to pull out of the first one. Said versus Martinez is going to be crazy. That's a great fight, man. Definitely don't want to miss that one. Vitor Petrino versus Anton Turkal is one of the best fights on the whole card. Two guys that go for the finish the entire time. Rafael Assunção's on this. He's going to be fighting Davey Grant to see if the younger fighter could take out the old vet. And Assunção is definitely not the same as he used to be. Definitely a fan of Ariana Lipski. And she's going to have a tough one against JJ Aldridge. Tyson Nam versus Bruno Silva is an amazing fight, man. Two guys with a lot of power, a lot of knockdowns between each other. For an example, in Tyson Nam's last 4 fights, he has 3 knockdowns. And Bruno Silva, in his last 3 fights, has 4 knockdowns. Two guys hit really hard in that flyweight division. And Carlston Harris is back after that beating from Shavkat Rakhmonov. Hopefully he can show his skills in this one. And I have to say that the prospect of the night, there's a lot of them. A ton of young guys, but Vitor Petrino stands out to me, man. Good striking, a lot of power, young, 25 years old. He's undefeated. The fighter of the night is going to go to Petr Yan, of course. I mean, Petr Yan is the former champion. Hopefully he's able to deliver because he's not having like great results right now, even though he's performing well in his fights. He has a lot of losses where it looks kind of strange to actually see that on his record. The stake of the night, the fighter that is in hot waters right now, is Rafael Assunção. He is 1-4 in his last 5 fights, and if he loses to Davey Grant, I don't know how much longer he's going to have in the UFC, man. The banger of the night is 100% Vitor Petrino versus Anton Turkal. That's going to be such a wild fight because Turkal is just a crazy fighter out there. Really throws caution to the wind, and with the power that Petrino has and his willingness to just throw down with his opponent, that should be a really fun one. And then the fight of the night is for sure the main event. Petr Yan versus Merab, the 2 best fighters on the card by a long shot, and the most skilled fight competitively, and it's going to be really tactical. But we're going to go to our first fight, Said Nurmagomedov versus Jonathan Martinez. 2 well-rounded fighters. Both guys have good guillotine chokes, both really good kickers, and use their hands more as a countering measure, especially for Martinez. Martinez comes out there with a very simple game plan against everybody he fights. He's a southpaw kicker, always throwing kicks with the left leg to the head, body, and legs. And just like you saw against Cub Swanson, able to finish him off with leg kicks. That's how powerful he is. He has massive legs too, so it's a lot of mass slamming into the opponent. And then his hands and elbows are usually to intercept the opponent coming in and counter them. And sometimes he'll try to catch you on the exit too. But the thing about Said is he fights from a distance. The only time Said wants to get close to you is if he's shooting for a takedown. So there's gonna be a lot of kicks in this fight, a lot of far range strikes, crazy techniques, especially from Said, who's more of a spinner, spins for the kicks, spins for the back fist and everything like that. And he has a good counter lead high kick to stop the opponent from coming in on him. But I think the biggest difference in this fight is going to be the wrestling. Said is so much of a better wrestler than Martinez. I would actually have to say that his overall grappling is much better than his striking, even though his striking is flashy. His grappling creates results. He has good chain wrestling and amazing chokes, man. He will dive for that guillotine and he always gets it tight, but sometimes you're able to get out of it. But even there, he has a good ability to scramble and reverse the position on you. So ultimately, my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with the big favorite here, Said Nurmagomedov, and I think he's going to win this by a decision. Martinez is pretty solid. He has a good, strong base, so it might take a bit from Said to get him to the ground, but I think eventually through the many efforts that he attempts with, Said is eventually going to get the fight to the ground, and that's going to be the difference maker in these rounds. And then we go to Nikita Krylov versus Spann. yet again, and nothing really changes, man. It really is going to depend on how Nikita Krylov comes out there. Does he come out there intelligently and actually picks his shots, gets the takedowns early? And if he does that, he should win the fight, honestly. He has the skills and the style to beat Ryan Spann. And in fact, if he fights the correct way, he should beat Ryan Spann. But the thing is, he just doesn't make the best decisions sometimes, and he will get caught. He'll get caught in submissions, and Ryan Spann has a lot of submissions on his record. He's not like a crafty submission artist, but he's really opportunistic with it. So if he sees an opening, he's going to jump on it. And Nikita also gets hit on the feet before he attempts his takedowns. You saw this especially when it fought Volkan Oezdemir, a guy he should be shooting takedowns right away in the fight. And he was getting tagged up. And if he gets touched like that by Ryan Spann, this fight's going to be over, man. The thing is, though, Ryan Spann will gas himself out trying to finish you sometimes. And if he can't get Nikita Krylov out of there in the early rounds, it could be dicey for him. Now, the only big X factor, the difference between the last time we talked about this fight and now, is the fact that Krylov had to pull out. So there was something wrong with him for him to pull out, and now it's rebooked so quickly. So is he 100%? Is he in as good condition as Ryan Spann? And Ryan Spann now has more time to prepare for Krylov without being injured or anything like that. Whereas Krylov had to focus on recovery and then refocus on Ryan Spann again. So I think the focus might be a little bit different here, but it's still a tough fight to predict. Nikita Krylov has a style to beat Ryan Spann, but with everything considered and the fight IQ with the finishing ability of Ryan Spann, I'm going to stick with who I picked before. I'm going to stick with Ryan Spann, and I'm going to go by a second round knockout. Now, it's not 5 rounds anymore. It's going to be 3 rounds, which is actually going to favor Ryan Spann. There's more of an advantage for him to win this now. Whereas if it was 5 rounds, both guys do gas out, but Krylov is more experienced going longer, and he's more experienced fighting other veterans who will make the fight longer as well. So I'm going to go Ryan Spann, second round TKO. And then we go to the co-main event. Alexandr Volkov versus Alexandr Romanov. The pure striker versus grappler matchup. On the feet, Romanov has really nothing for Volkov unless he swings some big punch and gets that in there. He's a heavyweight, anything can happen on the feet. But when it comes to the ground, it's going to be tough for Volkov, I'm not going to lie. The guy's long, so he might be hard to take to the ground depending on how Romanov wants to take him down there. And on the ground, Volkov has those long legs to try to go out for triangles and arm bars and stuff like that. But as soon as Romanov passes the guard, this fight's probably a wrap. His arm triangle is going to be impossible to get out of. He could get his back as well. He has all sorts of different kind of submissions from that top position after passing guard. I don't think Volkov is going to be ready for it. And even when it comes to the takedowns on the feet, Romanov will throw you off your feet. He's not going to try to take you down one leg at a time, because that's where it gets pretty difficult for someone to take Volkov down, right? And that's where you saw Martin Tibor having a tough time taking Volkov down, right? He shot in 16 times and got none of them. It's a whole different thing with Romanov. It's kind of similar to how Tom Aspinall took him to the ground. He shot in that double leg and just blasted him off his feet. Romanov will do that, and in the clinch, he will literally throw you over belly to belly. Not a lot of heavyweights do that, and Romanov has that crazy style in the clinch. And Volkov's not a one-punch knockout artist. He's very technical. He's methodical. He knows how to pick his shots and stuff, but he is flat-footed. And even if he touches Romanov, I think Romanov could probably take a few, get into the clinch, belly to belly him, get him to the ground into side control, and finish it with an arm triangle or something like that. So ultimately, my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Alexandr Romanov, and I'm going to go by a third-round submission. And then we go to the main event. Petr Yan versus Merab Dvalishvili. It's going to be tough to know how this is going to go down, because a lot of people do believe that Petr Yan is just way too much. Even the odds show that he's a minus 260. That's a big favorite. But I think a lot of people are not giving Merab enough credit. Even though his last performance was definitely not fun to watch, his ability to hold the opponent in positions and them not able to get out is something that has to worry a lot of these contenders. If it's on the ground, like he did against Marlon Moraes, or if it's against the fence, like he did against Jose Aldo, and these two guys have amazing takedown defense, amazing grappling defense overall, he should be able to do something similar to Petr Yan as well. But the only difference here is Merab did it to those guys in 3 rounds. This is a 5-round fight, and we know Petr Yan in a 5-round fight is a different beast, because he is relatively easier to fight in the first couple rounds, where he has time to pick you apart, download the data, and understand what he has to do in order to capitalize. 4th and 5th round Petr Yan is one of the best fighters in the UFC. So even if he gets held up against the fence and even taken to the ground a couple times by Merab in the first and second rounds, I think by the time the 4th and 5th, he's going to understand exactly what Merab is doing. He's going to know exactly how to get out of those positions, reverse, angle off with his footwork a bit, counter the takedown attempts, and really catch him on those exits. Because Merab sometimes will have his chin up on the exits of his takedowns, or if the opponent's able to get away. That's where Yan could definitely start to capitalize, and he just had the experience of surviving Sterling on his back. Aljamain Sterling is the best back taker in bantamweight history. He's one of the best submission artists ever in the bantamweight division, and he survived them with him on his back. Merab is different. He will just hold you down, land some good ground and pound shots, but ultimately just control you for the most part. And I think it's harder to do that against someone like Petr Yan. Merab's approach to a fight, like his style is so simple. It's really easy to understand what he's trying to do. I think in a 5-round fight, Yan has so much time to be able to eventually capitalize on that. Even though Merab does train with Sterling, and he will get some pointers from the champ, right? He will understand some things to do against Petr Yan, like fake up high to get Yan to guard up high, not really focusing on his hips, shoot under that, control him a bit, and repeat that process, right? Rinse and repeat. But to expect the same Petr Yan, I think would be a mistake. Because the thing is, the guy's not old. Yan is in his prime years right now. He's going to get better. So this is what I'll say. In a 3-round fight, I would actually favor Merab to probably win that on the scorecards. But in a 5-round fight, I think because of the extra 2 rounds and the fact that Yan is just so much better in those later rounds and he figures out everybody he fights in a 5-rounder, it makes the fight a lot more difficult to predict. Because how many rounds can Merab keep Petr Yan on the ground and just ride those out? How long can you keep him up against the fence without Petr Yan able to land any damage? 1, 2, maybe 3? If he's able to do that for 3 rounds, Yan is gonna have to finish him. But if he's able to do it for just 2 and Yan figures him out, then Yan can get the win. That is why it's really hard to actually predict on how this fight is going to happen. But if I'm gonna have to pick a winner here, I'm gonna go with Petr Yan, and I'm gonna go by a 5th round TKO. I think he's going to be losing the early rounds. I think he's going to get held down a bit, held up against the fence, fight them off. His takedown defense is going to get better as the fight goes on. And every single time it's in striking distance, he's going to try to hurt Merab with every single shot to make the damage count. At least that's what he probably should try, because he's not going to have a lot of time before Merab shoots on him. So every second on the feet is precious to him. He needs to make those count. And as we know, damage is going to trump just holding someone down or holding up against the fence. Merab could do a good job on people of not allowing them to create damage, because he's just kind of controlling the fight and slowing it down so much. But I think Yan, as crafty as he is, as intelligent as he is in 5-round fights, I'm going to have to trust his ability in those later rounds to make something happen after feeling out all the takedowns and see the openings that Merab is constantly giving him throughout the whole fight. So as you could tell, I don't agree with the odds here. I don't agree that Yan should be at minus 270, because that's pretty much saying that Merab really has barely any chance to win this, but he actually has a big chance to win this through his wrestling. If he beats Yan, I actually wouldn't be surprised. And with the momentum right now, Merab is on a huge win streak, whereas Yan has lost quite a bit in his last few fights, even though he has really good performances. So it's a back and forth kind of fight in my opinion. And if you want to capitalize on those odds and all the other fights as well, make sure to go to mybookie.ag, as the lines are moving quickly, man. If you want to bet on Merab, now is probably the best time to do it. And instead of just picking the winner here, if you want to go by the method of victory, they are interesting. You do have Yan winning by a knockout at a plus 224. Him winning by decision is minus 101. Submission is probably not going to happen. He really doesn't even attempt them. And as for Merab, if you're going to pick Merab here, honestly, just picking him to win might be better, because he's most likely going to win by a decision, plus 280, but just picking him is a plus 204. So it is a difference, but not too much. And if there is a chance like he submits Yan or something, that's a plus 1275. It is risky, so I think the best bet if you're riding with Merab here is just to pick him at plus 204. Alexandr Romanov to win by a submission is plus 242. I like those odds there. Him to win by a decision is plus 380. I like those definitely better than him as a minus 161. I think the most likely way he would beat Volkov is by a submission though, but a decision can possibly happen. If he knocks Volkov out, that is insane. So we know that Saeed is a minus 263 against Jonathan Martinez, who is a plus 192, and the most likely way that Nurmagomedov would probably win is a decision or a submission. Him to win by a submission is plus 380. But him to win by a decision is plus 122. I am picking him to win by a decision because I think that Martinez is tough. He has good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a well-rounded fighter. So it might be hard for Saeed to actually finish him. So I definitely like that plus 122. But again, going by these methods, instead of just picking the fighter, is much riskier. Because you're like not only predicting the winner of the fight, you're predicting how it's going to end too, with that fighter winning it. Man, and you have Mario Batista as a minus 1100. Can you imagine if Canetti beats him? Huge upset, man. Huge. Those are the kind of odds that doesn't hurt to put something on. Alexa Grasso just beat Shevchenko with similar odds. So like, Again, those kind of odds, it's always worth it. Like, you don't lose much if you just put something on there, like $1 or $2, something like that. And of course, you can always go with a parlay where you can match up multiple fighters that you think are going to win in order to multiply your earnings. There's a lot of different kind of strategies you can go with that. And of course, MyBookie has the first deposit bonus where when you sign up with mybookie.ag, they'll match up your first deposit all the way up to $1,000. So they're giving you free money in order to play with it. And all you have to do in order to activate this is use the promo code WEASEL. That's WEASLE. And just like any other betting site, they're going to have that rollover withdrawal requirement because they are pretty much giving you free money with that deposit bonus. So make sure to go to mybookie.ag today so you can win big. And man, I can't wait for that card. It's going to be a really fun one. There's a lot of great fights. I mean, the fact that Nikita, Krylov, and Ryan Spann aren't even the co-main event, and they were the main event not too long ago of a fight night, tells you how much better this card actually is. And if you're a fan of prospects like up-and-coming fighters, this is definitely a card you do not want to miss. And just a reminder again, it does start earlier in the day. So thank you so much for watching. That's the end of the predictions for this card, and I'll see you guys in the next video.